While I think that the Maze of the Master Yu-Gi-Oh set does have some scam elements in it, and I talked about it in last week's video, there are some cards and some strategies that I am really excited about. All the way from the TCG exclusive Odeon's Trap deck, which is hell-bent on making trap monsters as competitive as possible with their crazy good cards. Or even the combo-centric ABC monsters getting Kaiba's new retrain of XYZ monsters to make them even stronger than before. What's really interesting about every single one of these decks that I'm going to talk to you about is that they do have all of the parts to be competitive in this meta. But even if they aren't the deck to beat in the game, they're definitely a deck that you're going to want to know about in case you go against it. And in case you guys didn't know who I am, hi everybody, I'm your professor today, TheCaliEffect. When it comes to understanding and teaching Yu-Gi-Oh strategies, I have no peers. Today's Yu-Gi-Oh subject is going to be reading, something Yu-Gi-Oh players completely fell at, but if you stick with me, you'll learn all of the important things you need to know about some of the decks that will be prevalent in the meta. Let's go ahead and jump on in. What's going on with y'all, big dog? And it is an amazing day for Yu-Gi-Oh! I hope that your day phenomenal. But if it isn't, don't let what happened at the beginning of your day ruin the rest of your day. In case you guys didn't know what today is, it's Update Monday! A particular time in this video where I trick you into thinking that this is a Yu-Gi-Oh video only to make you a better person overall. And don't worry, big dog, if you're only here for Yu-Gi-Oh, there's timestamps. Today for Update Monday, I want to talk about how you never know how you can impact someone, whether it's positively or negatively. Fortunately, no, none of my students have figured out that I'm the TheCaliEffect yet, and I would love to keep it that way. But one thing that actually did come across is that I met someone on the way to work at a Dutch Bros, and he was a pretty cool guy. I can't remember his name right now, but he did talk about how I got him back into Yu-Gi-Oh, and I've been helping him along his Yu-Gi-Oh journey. And it's crazy that that happened because on my way to attempt to make an impact for the adults of tomorrow, I made an impact on an adult of today, which I thought was really cool. And it didn't really cross my mind on how much of a huge impact that you guys are making on me as well. Basically, I wanted to say I appreciate you, big dogs, and hopefully you graduate from Slifer Slacker to at least a Reading Raw, because there will be a worksheet for today's video. I want you guys to comment down below in the comment section what are some other strategies that you think can become really powerful from Maze of the Masters. I think that Maze of the Masters is really weird, mainly because it introduces some strategies that players are really on the fence about. We know that these strategies were not successful in the OCG, but fortunately, there are actually a ton of strategies in the TCG that weren't successful in the OCG and do really well now. I think it's one of the biggest reasons why it makes players skeptical about this Yu-Gi-Oh set, but it also could be the reason why a player wins or loses the most important rounds at a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament. From personal experience, the biggest decider in Yu-Gi-Oh, especially at major events, is always that deck that you do or don't know. I think the surprise factor by a very strong pilot could be it, which is the reason why I think that players should be wary of Galaxy Eyes and all of the new support inside of Maze of the Masters. You see, Kite's deck has always been pretty much a laughing stock in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! The deck has always done a ton of wheel spinning with not really much to show for it. For the players that don't know exactly how Galaxy Eyes works, I think the best way to put it is to say that it's an Exceed version of Tenpai Dragon. This deck can swing really hard and really fast. With number C62 Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon Dragon and number 100 Numeron Dragon, this strategy can always create a situation where it can outright win the game, like Tenpai Dragon. The only drawback to this deck is that it lacked the consistency to always be able to get into those monsters, but that kind of changes now. The new starters from this deck I think are actually insane. The Schwarzschild's Infinity Dragon is almost everything you want from a starter inside of a Yu-Gi-Oh deck that plays in modern times. Not only is the card an amazing starter when going first, it also could be an amazing extender when going second. It is a free 1-card Exceed to any rank 8 dragon monster of your choice, which can ultimately wind up being those game-ending cards that I mentioned before. But if that wasn't enough, Tachyon Cloud Dragon is another consistency piece. The only drawback is that you would have to search it. That's easily fixed by playing Starly Seyfried in the deck, which can get back your Infinity Dragon and other dragon monsters back to your hand. Seyfried also bridges the dragon aspect of this deck to monsters like Bestials, which can not only be an excellent source of disruption, the deck can also consistently summon a level 8 dragon monster to be able to pile up on your plays. And the new spell card that comes out inside of the set, 7th Tachyon, is actually meant for this Yu-Gi-Oh strategy. You see, Galaxy Eyes is going through a bit of a revolution. In my opinion, I think that the deck is tired of being the punching bag and now wants to be one of the top players in the game. The XE monsters are disturbingly good, with the new Dragluxin getting you any Galaxy or Tachyon card, but an old card that the deck could use is number 46, Dragluon. This monster currently states that dragon monsters cannot activate their effects until the end of your opponent's turn. That means that this deck can't be bestialed, and if you're going against a deck like Blue Eyes, you could potentially completely shut them down. Not to mention that since the deck is streamlined with 12 new starters, you could play a ton of hand traps or board breakers inside of this deck to make it incredibly effective. But what really put this deck over the top for me is the card called Tachyon Transmigration. Tachyon Transmigration was normally a card that wasn't easy to get to, but thanks to Dragluxin, it's incredibly searchable. And it basically says if you control a Galaxy monster, you can activate this card as Chain Link 2 or higher. Not only do you negate all of your opponent's cards that were in that Chain Link, you shuffle them into the deck. That can be incredibly good at getting rid of so many cards in the game, it's not even funny. But the best thing about it is that you can activate this card from your hand, and all you have to do is have Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon, and that card's kind of insane in itself. Galaxy Eyes, Photon, or Tachyon is probably one of the most underestimated decks in Yu-Gi-Oh right now. It can function like a Tenpai Yu-Gi-Oh strategy that can immediately win, or it can actually have the patience of going first and building its own board. It's a dragon deck, so its options are never limited, and I think it's one of the stronger strategies that comes out of Maze of the Masters that a lot of people are not paying attention to. Now, big dog, in case you were wondering what will be my personal deck list on this Galaxy Eyes Tachyon deck, I went ahead and put them all on my Patreon as a special thank you for helping me pay my editors. Or even working on a Galaxy Eyes versus, I don't know, it could be a lot of other decks that it's playing against. I want you guys to let me know what would you like to see the most. Now, when I first saw Odeon's new cards, my first reaction was, ew. It didn't seem like a really well thought or put together Yu-Gi-Oh deck. I mean, first, we still have to use Temple of the Kings, and secondly, the deck insinuated that I would be using Winged Dragon of Ra without its effects, without attacking, and giving up all of my cards. Crazy, scary, spooky, hilarious. Class, my support for Odeon was almost nil, and then I played the deck. I think some of the best strategies in Yu-Gi-Oh may not wow you on paper, but they do some things that make you wonder. While I wouldn't say that Odeon's deck is a tier 1 Yu-Gi-Oh strategy, it has some things about it that makes you really want to consider again. I think what really started to make my thinker think is Divine Serpent Apopus. This card can be summoned by getting rid of 2 Apopus monsters, which doesn't seem really strong. But the fact that it can not only get those cards back to your side of the field that you used to be able to summon this card, as well as destroy a card on the field when a trap is activated, it got my tinker tinking. This card is also not once per turn, which is scary. The next thing I noticed is while I wasn't really amused with a bottom of Apopus in my deck, Apopus the Serpent and Apopus the Swamp Deity are 2 different cards. Apopus the Serpent not only summons itself as a monster and can set any Apopus trap that can be activated that turn, Apopus of the Swamp Deity allows you to be able to negate your opponent's cards on the field up to the number of other continuous trap cards you control. So these 2 cards in combination with one another can negate 2 face-up cards on the field. And if you have Divine Serpent on the field, you can also destroy a card on the field. Now, what if I told you that getting all of this out is a mere 1 card-esque combo? But what I'm really loving about Odeon's deck is how inclusive it is to the other trap monsters. This deck virtually has no restrictions and can put a lot of bodies on your side of the field through 1.5 card combos. So trap monsters that provide other resources like Statue of the Anguish Pattern are huge inside of this deck. But I think a lot of players will probably mix and mash this with other strategies like Argo Stars and Eldritch because the deck is so easy to play other strategies alongside of, which probably means they'll also cycle in Fiendsmith. I want you big dogs to think about this. The Odeon deck has no restrictions and can summon bodies to the side of the field with ease. You also have ample extra deck space, and you can make the main board space to play whatever engine you want. Because this deck is a TCG exclusive and it's underexplored, players are going to try to figure out all different types of things until something sticks. I think what's been calling me is the new trap card Verdict of Anubis. Now this card doesn't seem really fancy, but it says when your opponent activates a spell or trap card, while you control 3 or more spell and trap cards, you can negate the activation and destroy that card. Then if you control Temple of the Kings, you can destroy as many monsters your opponent controls as possible and inflict damage to them. Verdict of Anubis seems like one of those cards. It's super generic, it's searchable inside of the Odeon deck, and it's really powerful. You remember when we talked about how Galaxy Eyes had its very own trap card that could change the tide of the game? I think Verdict of Anubis could very much be that card too. This card by itself stops the deck's counters like Evenly Matched and Harpy's Feather Duster, but also can just stop really powerful spell and trap cards in the game. I absolutely love it. Now class, the very last deck that I am really excited about. I think that this could be the strongest of the 3. It is a strategy that has been competitive before, but fell out of relevancy due to certain cards being hit. And of course, the Yu-Gi-Oh card game moving forward. I think that ABC has a lot to offer. ABC is a combo-based union deck that's built on summoning light machine monsters to your side of the field. If you guys played around the 2016 format, then you know that ABC always has the potential to be one of the best decks in the game, and it's simply because their effects are not once per turn. Well, for some reason, Konami decided to keep up with that trend. The new Union monsters X Cross Cannon, Y Yearhead, and Z Zillion Tank are incredibly powerful. They're also not once per turn. Well, at least 2 of the 3. X Cross Cannon is the best card in the deck and is a full 1-card walking combo. Before in ABC's days, we would need to be able to have Union Hanger in our hand, or we would need a combination of cards to make things go. X Cross Cannon not only fixes a ton of those problems, but it also allows you to be able to summon another fusion monster from your deck that we'll talk about in a second. What Z Zillion Tank and Y Dragon Yearhead do by themselves is also really good. Z Zillion Tank allowing you to be able to attach banished Union monsters, which comes up a lot considering that you banish those to summon some of your other ABC parts, and Y Dragon Yearhead, which can attach from the graveyard. Really cool. The deck is fairly minimal on brick cards and has the combo potential to go through the roof. I think the reason why Konami decided to go this way for this deck is because they can actually contain the non-once per turns, since they are Union monsters and can pretty much only search other Union monsters. It's kind of fair, but no one really wants to be in a situation where somebody is comboing forever. The new monster XYZ Hyper Dragon Cannon is almost just like ABC Buster Dragon. It's summoned by banishing XYZ from your field and then can destroy a card on the opponent's side of the field during the opponent's turn. The best thing about this card is that it can banish itself from the graveyard to be able to summon the fusion targets from your banished pile back to your side of the field, which makes this card's recursion ability a lot stronger than ABC Buster Dragon. Make no mistake, Buster Dragon is still a complete powerhouse, but Hyper Dragon also fulfills another role, getting your banished Union monsters back. ABC has been some of my favorite cards since Kaiba has used them in the Silivori Galcos arc, and I think that these cards, these retrains, do the deck justice. And I know I said I had 3 decks, but I technically have 4. I think that this deck is incredible. Ancient Gear is kind of crazy and slept on. A lot of people forgot that Ancient Gear statue was the last missing piece that this deck needed. Getting a monster that allows you to be able to summon Ancient Gear monsters from your deck, which gets your combo started, would be pretty important. It'd be like Tenpai Dragon without Pedra. And speaking of such, Ancient Gear is like Tenpai Dragon, except it has that Sengen summoning thing a little bit more down pat. Ancient Gear Fortress is just a little bit stronger, saying that it isn't a card on the ban list. Your opponent won't be able to respond to any of your Ancient Gear summons, and as you already know with Ancient Gear monsters, when they battle, your opponent can't do anything either. The main goal of this deck is to make Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem or Chaos Ancient Gear Giant and win the game on that particular turn. And the deck is incredibly good at doing it. I actually had a Master's Climb with the strategy, and it's pretty efficient, with both Ancient Gear and ABC getting some of the cards that they needed to be able to compete in current Yu-Gi-Oh! I wonder exactly what would happen. These decks may not be the cream of the crop, the go-to beat decks in the game, but there's something that you can lose to if you don't respect. Also, Yu-Gi-Oh! Players, I'm not trying to get you all the way to the top and build your hypes up, because these decks, again, still aren't the best decks in the game, but I think you very much can win with them. Like I said before, class, you have some class work. Post down below in the comment section what are some other decks that you think can compete because of the Maze of the Master set. I left a lot of meat on the bones for you guys, so I expect to see some full pages. Please, don't really show a full page. You don't have to do that. But until then, big dog, you can check out these other videos so I can catch you on the next one.